Okay, so I wanted to show you guys a little bit about how to write a lab report. And so you guys have this document, I've shared it with you, and so this is how your lab report will be graded. And so it has all the points breakdown, adds up to 100, all that kind of good stuff. So title, self-explanatory. Abstract. So an abstract is an overall summary of your entire paper. So we're going to go back and I'll show you how to kind of do that. Introduction has all of your background information, the purpose, and the hypothesis. Some students like to put these three things in bold so that it stands out in their paper, and I'm sure to find it. Other students just write it like a regular paragraph. That's fine. Whatever format you prefer is fine. Materials and procedures. This is usually a list of things used in the lab and the steps that you took in the lab. And although I usually give you a lab procedure that I recommend, some students change it along the way or make changes in the amount of a substance that they added. And so you need any kind of changes in the procedures you need to document there in your paper. Results data collection. This is any type of table that you take your data down in, any kind of percent error calculations that you might do, any kind of mathy stuff would all be in this section. Conclusions and discussion. This is where you take all of that result stuff and actually think about it. So results and data collection, you might write a few sentences just like, this is what we found, kind of stuff, but you're not going to analyze it. You're going to save all analysis for the conclusion and discussion. So any time that you are drawing conclusions, it should only be in this section of your paper. It should never, ever be in the results section. A lot of students mess that up. The questions section is for new questions that you have. It's not for answering any questions that I have posed to you in the lab. All of the questions that I pose to you in the lab should be answered in your conclusions and discussion section. This section for questions is, what new questions do you have now that you've done this experiment? Works cited, and of course grammar, punctuation, spelling. Okay? So you have recently completed your macromolecule lab. And so when you go to write your paper, you want there are a few strategies you can use. I usually just lay out all my sections first, and then I go back and write what I want to write. So we had title, abstract, introduction. That's another word for procedures. Either way is fine. Result. And our discussion. Question. Work. Cited. So your title should be a creative, unique title that is explanatory, but not necessarily like Lab 1. Okay, so we did our investigation of macromolecule in O2. So this is my title. You might come up with something completely different. Some students do something a little, cutesy. That's fine as long as it's informative. So the abstract, even though it's first in my paper, I'm going to just put in some space, and I'm going to come back to that later. Your abstract should be no longer than 8 sentences. And it's just an overall summary. You're not doing a whole lot of detail here. You're not giving a whole lot of information. It's just a brief snapshot of what the lab was about. The introduction, though, is very different from an introduction that you write in English class. In English, you write an introduction is maybe 8 sentences long, it's very brief, but an introduction in a science paper is very lengthy, and it explains pretty much everything about the background of the lab. And so again, we had background information, we had, let me flip back, purpose, and our hypothesis. So in this section of the paper, you should have a lot of citations. And so that means that any time that you write down something that you had to find out from somewhere, whether it was you found it out in class or from a book or something, you should be citing your work. And so if we start off with background information and we talk about that macromolecules are carbon-based molecules. That 12 years. Okay, so just a sentence. So, whatever you want to, whatever stuff. But I had to learn somewhere that macromolecules are carbon-based molecules. They help, they're part of cells, they carry out life processes. And so I have to cite my book. Okay? So APA format, you have the author's last name and a comma and then the year of publication. If you are citing a website, it's similar, but it's the title of the website unless an author is listed. And again, the year of publication. And so all information that you are writing down that you found somewhere else needs to be cited. You will not get credit for portions of your paper that are clearly cited, like should be cited, if you don't actually cite them. It's plagiarism at that point. And so it should just be a 0 on the paper, but instead I'm just going to take off points for that section. The purpose, sometimes the purpose is given to you in the lab, sometimes not. And so sometimes you have to think about that a little bit. And your hypothesis, sometimes it's just an observation. Sometimes it's an if-then statement. Either format is fine. Materials and methods, again, you can list out materials. And you can just, go through and list them, whatever you do, okay? Sometimes you include quantities, so if you had test tubes, you would have 8 of them. Results, you wrote a lot of these results down in your lab manual or your lab notebook already. And so if you want to take a picture of those tables and insert them there, or if you want to make a photocopy, you can. And so you already done those results, and that's fine. Your discussion, let me look back at results real quick. Okay, also in your results section, I didn't mention this earlier, but I have here data manipulation. So basically, sometimes you have table data that can be graphed, and so changing that data from a table into a picture, that would also be in the results section. However, I don't think we have that graphing in this particular lab. The discussion section is basically where you look back at all of the tables from your results and your hypothesis statements and make connections between them. Okay? So the longest parts of your paper should be the background information. that should be probably about a page typed. And then the discussion should also be quite lengthy, again about a page typed. Materials and methods, things like that, that might be fairly short. Results, depending on the length of the lab and the type of lab involved, that'll be varying amounts. Works cited, you should always cite your textbook. There's probably no lab that we will ever do that you will not cite your textbook in. But also if you use any online resources, and please be mindful about the types of online resources you use. Wikipedia is not a valid source. So you need to use good science sources in order to have a valid work cited. Typically I expect about 3 citations per lab report, but again you might have more, you might have less, but 3 is usually a good number to shoot for. Okay? So if you have questions about, back to the abstract. So again, I said that your background information is going to be about a page. Your discussion is going to be about a page, and they're all commenting about the connection between your results and your hypothesis. So then, after you've written your whole paper, you're going to go back to your abstract and basically quickly summarize the entire lab. Again, no longer than 8 sentences. Okay? So I hope this is kind of useful. If you have questions, email me, okay? See you soon, guys. Bye.